What's going on, guys? It's Nick from Mindful Mastery, and today we are going over the top 5 takeaways of the Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. And honestly, we are just scratching the surface today because Chris Bailey spent an entire year on productivity, experimenting with different things that would help him become more productive. So we are barely getting any of the information that is in this entire book, even though it does look pretty small. And after the end of each chapter, he actually has little challenges that you can do to help improve your productivity, which is what I have bookmarked right here or flagged. So I would highly recommend that you check this book out and get it. I'll have a link in the description if you're interested. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a like. If you're anything like me, you're constantly worrying about and trying to remember all the things that you need to get done. But our brains weren't actually meant to remember everything. Our working memory can only hold about 4 pieces of information at one time. So if you're trying to remember 3 or 4 different things, then your working memory is completely full and you won't be able to focus. One way that you can help clear your mind is by writing things down while you work. So keep a piece of paper next to you or a notepad open on your laptop. This way you can immediately write down a thought whenever it comes to you so that you don't need to worry about it anymore. At first, your brain will continue to wander and think about those things that you're worrying about, but the more that you do this, the more your brain will get used to not needing to remember everything for you. If it is something urgent, then you can go and immediately do that. But if it isn't urgent, then try to refrain from thinking about it until you finish working. And once you finish working, you can then try and identify when things need to get done, or if you can completely eliminate some of the items from the list. And after that, you can take the list and pick the 3 things that you want to do the next day. Chris Bailey recommends that you only do 3 things each day, because if you do more than that, then you might begin to get overwhelmed or spread yourself thin on those things that you're working on. But if you do 3 things each day, then you'll be able to focus intently on each of those things and be much more productive. And you should make sure that you do this at the end of each day so that the next day you don't need to worry about what you're going to do. In the morning, you can just go ahead and get started. Another way to help clear your mind is to take advantage of shower thoughts. You've probably had those times where you're in the shower and a brilliant idea or revelation comes to you about something that you're working on. I actually had one this morning about getting Democrats and Republicans to get along. But this happens because you allow your mind to wander. Now, I know I just said that wandering isn't a good thing, but that's in the context of whenever you're trying to focus. Because if you're trying to focus and your mind is wandering, it's kind of like running a marathon while you're trying to stay still. And there isn't even that much time that we give ourselves to allow our minds to wander. Driving might be a good time to do that, but most of us listen to music or a podcast instead, and I've actually fallen into the habit of watching Netflix while I'm cooking, so I don't even give myself a break then. And doing this will help you exit the focus mode of thinking, which will help you think of all the things that you need to get done, help you come up with solutions to your problems, as well as just helping you become more creative in general. And this is because while you're in the focus mode of thinking, you are tunnel visioning on one thing or one way to solve a problem. But whenever you allow your mind to wander, it opens it up to the different paths that it can take to solve a problem or to think of something new. Plus, whenever you get into the habit of doing this consistently, whenever you're trying to focus, you are much better able to do so because you have time separate for letting your mind wander. Chris Bailey recommends that you take 15 minutes to let your mind wander and write down all the things that you need to write down. And you can do this while sitting in your living room or going for a walk. Just take time out of your day to let your mind wander. One of the reasons that most people want to become more productive is to try to feel more in control of their lives. And hotspots are a great way to begin to gain control over your life. Hotspots are the 7 main areas that we invest our time. They are mind, body, emotion, career, finances, relationships, and fun. You'll take the items that you wrote down during the first takeaway and then categorize them under each of these different hotspots. So if you want to start reading more, then you put that under mind. If you want to start working out, then you put that under body. Or if you want to go to Africa and swing from the trees like Tarzan, then you'll put that under fun. Initially, each of these categories will begin to look overwhelming because they will get really filled up the more that you remember. But by consistently doing this, you'll develop a bird's eye view of all the things that you have on your plate, and it will help you to understand where you are prioritizing your time. Now, you should look at this each and every week so that you can determine if you should shift some of your focus from one hotspot to another so that you can make sure that you are on the right path. A funny thing happens whenever you reduce distractions and the amount of information that you're experiencing throughout the day. You actually remember more. This is because throughout the day we are constantly bombarded with information from social media and news articles trying to get our attention. This makes it very difficult for our brains to begin storing information in our long-term memory because our working memory is constantly being overwhelmed. Looking at multitasking, it functions very similarly to distractions because we are constantly being stimulated, which releases the chemical called dopamine, which is responsible for addiction. This is why it's so hard to prevent yourself from giving in to distractions or not multitasking, but is also why it's super important that you start practicing single tasking. Now, single tasking doesn't feel as productive as multitasking because you're not being as stimulated, but it is much more productive because you are able to focus much more intently on what you're trying to do. In order to improve your attention muscle, you should try and spend 20 minutes single tasking on one thing. And if you can do more, then do more. The goal is to gradually increase the amount that you can single task. And if you want to take it a step further, then disconnect from the internet or try to disable all of the notifications that you have. This will just kind of depend on what you're working on because obviously you might need the internet for some things, but try to disconnect from as much as possible to decrease all the distractions and enable you to focus as much as possible. Research has shown that whenever we are told to think of a stranger and told to think of our future selves, that our brain scans actually register the exact same. So we are just as familiar with a stranger as we are with our future selves. And this is because we constantly think of our future self as different from us, more motivated and more energy, which is why we often procrastinate and put things off for our future self to do because we think they are more likely to do it. But as many of us know, that's most likely not the case, and our future selves are very similar to how we are now. So we need to start thinking long-term and not short-term. Going back to the hotspots, you might think that your career is the most important thing to you right now, so you might sacrifice your body a little bit. But by investing a little bit of time into your body now, your mind will be a lot healthier, you'll spend less money going to doctor's offices, and you'll be able to do fun things later into your life. However, a lot of us compromise whenever it comes to our energy, whether that be going and eating fast food, drinking alcohol, not getting enough sleep, or not exercising. And this is because we think that investing time into these areas will take away from the time that we need to put into other areas. But investing in those areas will help you become more productive in general. Chris Bailey sees drinking alcohol as taking energy from tomorrow, drinking caffeine as taking energy from later today, whereas if you eat right, exercise, and get enough sleep, you're increasing the amount of energy that you will have in the future on a consistent basis. And most of us know this, right? So I'm not gonna harp on it too much. But a lot of us, whenever we try and change these things, we make grand sweeping changes and try to change everything. And most of the time we fail because of this. But you need to make small, gradual changes that will end up with big results. First, start off with getting enough sleep. Then cut out the cream and sugar from your coffee. Then cut out the coffee. Or just try to decrease the amount of time that you go out to drink from 2 nights a week to 1 night a week. These small changes don't really seem like much now, but whenever you begin to think long term, they really add up. My favorite takeaway is single tasking. And this one really resonated with me because I began to realize that I was multitasking in almost every aspect of my life, whether that be watching Netflix while I'm cooking or listening to music or a podcast while I'm driving. I was always trying to do something and never letting my mind wander. And that's the beautiful thing about single tasking. You can do it in almost any aspect of life. So if you are washing dishes, then you don't need to be watching TV. Or if you're watching TV and a commercial comes on, then you don't need to pull out your phone and begin distracting yourself with that. Since I read this part of the book and his experiment on disconnecting from the internet, I began to decrease the amount of technology that I consume throughout the day, which has helped me become much more productive. But now it's your turn. What was your favorite takeaway and how are you going to apply it to your life? Please comment that below. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't, and have a great day.